On the day of delivery, my husband received a call from Bai Yueguang on the way to take me to the hospital. He left me halfway without hesitation. Ruirui has an emergency, and I have to help her first. You know, she can't do without me. In the end, I couldn't get it to the doctor, which led to the child's early die. At the same time, my husband's white moonlight updated a circle of friends. My baby daughter finally gave birth. Fortunately, you are here. In the photo, Lao Gong is gently feeding her newborn kitten with a gentle face. I wiped my tears and commented under the photo. Let him come and divorce. I will make your happy family. 1. After learning that the child had died, I lay in bed with all my thoughts, and my body couldn't stop shaking. The doctor told me that in order to avoid overthinking and not wanting me to see the child's body, I shouted like crazy and forced myself to see it. Child. My child. Obviously, he survived healthily in my stomach yesterday, but today he died young. I have been looking forward to the stars and the moon for so long that no one can deprive me of the right to see him. Seeing that I was too crazy, the doctor had no choice but to hold the child. Tears fell and hit the breathless child. I gently hugged him and cried loudly. If I was disappointed when I was abandoned, then I am desperate now. I hate Zhuang Xinian. He has been married to me for several years. Even if we don't have much love, we can say that we respect each other like guests. But he abandoned me who was about to give birth just because of a phone call from Bai Yueguang. What a vicious behavior. After my physical function gradually recovered, I was supported and witnessed the child being pushed into the incinerator. He was small, didn't cry or make a fuss, as if he was asleep. I'm so painful that I can hardly shed tears. The doctor patted me on the shoulder sympathetically and sighed. If the festival is smooth, the child will still have it. Child? I sneered in my heart, and the accumulated emotions were like a boulder, blocking my chest, making me breathless. I won't have children with him anymore. Now when I think of his appearance, I feel sick to my stomach. When I returned to the hospital bed, there was a man sitting there, who was my best friend since I was a child. Somehow, my nose suddenly sore and I threw myself into her arms. Luli, my child is gone. It's because I didn't take good care of him. He is so small and so good. He is a very beautiful boy. He can come to see the world. He blames me. I am the worst mother in the world. Tears hit my cheeks on the hem of my clothes, and my liver and intestines were broken when I cried. Luli pressed my shoulder and her eyes turned red. After seeing that I recovered, she wanted to find Zhuang Xinian angrily, and she looked like she had cut him to death. Before I could stop it, I saw Luli smash his mobile phone in anger. I turned my head doubtfully and saw it on my mobile phone the next second. That was Zhuang Xinian's white moonlight Ruirui's circle of friends, on which only one of his hands was exposed, but I still recognized it. Since Ruirui came back, he took off the ring in his hand. It is said that a happy marriage does not need these formal things to prove it. I didn't bother to argue with him, but he wore an old watch. You don't need to guess. I know that it was sent by Ruirui. Now he also carries this watch to prove their love and happily shows off their own happiness on the day of our child's death. Ruirui's heart was suddenly pulled together and then said, "My precious daughter was finally born. Fortunately, you are here." This photo took a complete picture of Zhuang Xinian, who was gently feeding the kitten in his arms. What an ironic picture. He didn't even look at the birth of his child and hurried to find a kitten. My son is not as good as a cat. My eyes turned black in pain, and my teeth were desperately against the tip of my teeth. It was not until a burst of bloody smell that I finally woke up. 2. Luli hugged me tightly in fright and comforted me carefully. Mumble, I'm here, don't be afraid. Obviously, she was already trembling with fear, but she tried to comfort me. I took the mobile phone with difficulty and responded dryly, "Ali, I'm fine. What can I do if I have something to do? My son can't come back." I wiped away the tears from the corners of my eyes and clicked the next paragraph. "Let him come over and divorce, and I will make your happy family." After playing, I immediately turned off my mobile phone. As long as I saw the cat, I could think that my son's life was not as good as a cat. I couldn't wait to skin it and cramp it. Luli responded with tears in her eyes. In the secret cry, there was a burst of urgent bells. It was Zhuang Xinian. I answered the phone, and his roar came immediately. "Why are you crazy? Isn't it just giving birth to a child? Which woman doesn't have a child? There are so many doctors in the hospital. What will happen if I am one less? Ruirui's kitten is different. What if I'm not here and die? Can you stop being so pretentious and be a little compassionate?" Sympathy, I couldn't help but fight back angrily. "It's just a beast. Is it worth your anxiety? Or are you an old beast? Zhuang Xinian, listen to you. Is the child mine alone? I am usually a very gentle person and never speak harshly to Zhuang Xinian. Now it suddenly broke out. He was stunned for a long time and left a sentence, "You are simply unreasonable," and hung up the phone. "My son is dead, and you still expect me to reason with him?" Luli saw that I was really going to give up Zhuang Xinian, so she almost set off firecrackers to celebrate. She couldn't wait to take the mobile phone from me. "Save the photo in moments, send it to your account and leave in a hurry." Before leaving, she told me solemnly, Lin Jinan, as long as you want, I will definitely let Zhuang Xinian clean up and leave the house. Not only that, how much he has spent on Zhou Ruirui over the years, I will let him spit back a lot, and I guarantee that he won't take away a single one. Lu Li's father is a very famous lawyer, but she rarely mentions it. She is low-key and often has no form. Zhuang Xinian has always thought that she is a little girl from an ordinary family, and this time she is destined to be kicked to the iron plate. I couldn't help nodding, and the last trace of affection for Zhuang Xinian completely disappeared. Since I can't compare with a cat with him, why should I care about his face? Long after Lu Li left, Zhuang Xinian came in a hurry. He didn't even have time to change his clothes, and his face was full of joy. Where is my child? Let me see. I'm going to be a father. He was immersed in his fantasy, and I subconsciously touched my stomach in a cold tone. Then you go to hell and have a good look. I don't feel at ease when my son goes down alone. Why don't you go with him? I raised my eyes full of hatred. Zhuang Xi took a few steps back after the year, and my anger was uncontrollable. I have said many times that Ruirui's cat is a destroy. You come for an obstetric examination every month. Besides, I'm not a doctor. What's the use of being here? Have you made enough trouble? Let me tell you, Lin Jinan, if you take this attitude again, I will leave immediately. He was about to get his coat. I blinked my eyes and tears slipped silently. I'm sorry, baby. It's my mother who doesn't know people well. You were born in such a family and died at a young age. But don't worry, Mom loves you very much, and Mom will definitely avenge you. I didn't keep it. Zhuang Xinian left in anger, and the door was smashed with a loud noise. 3. After he left, I was completely in the dark, and I only felt cold all over, so cold that it hurt. A few days later, I was discharged from the hospital. Zhuang Xinian didn't come to see me again. He showed off the kitten with Zhou Ruirui every day, and he also named the cat Bei. This was originally the name I gave to my child, which means supreme treasure. Now that my son is dead, he gave his name to a cat. That I know Zhuang Xinian's behavior. He wants to anger me so that he logically asked me to contact him. I lay on the sofa, looked at the empty house and smiled dismally. Lu Li has prepared a divorce agreement for me, and can file a lawsuit at any time. I sent the documents in a flat tone. Come back and sign it. I don't want to make a fuss. Zhuang Xinian is now making some investments, which is at the beginning of his career. Over the years, he has never taken care of his family's food and drink, nor has he taken a penny. I reasonably suspect that the money he gave to Zhou Ruirui was earned by me, so the divorce agreement is reasonable. But if I do this, it is equivalent to cutting off his life. The phone was dialed quickly and I took it calmly. Zhuang Xinian was very angry. Lin Jinan, have you made enough noise? The child has just been born and you are going to divorce. Do you want him to have no father since he was a child? I have said it countless times that Ruirui and I are friends. Why do you let me clean up and leave the house? I sneered at the information. Child? Zhuang Xinian, I have already said that the child died. On the day your precious daughter was born, my son died young. Are you happy? I'll give way to you and Zhou Ruirui. We're divorced. What else are you dissatisfied with? As for the money, did you earn a penny in this family? The original momentum was suppressed, and Zhuang Xinian stumbled for a long time before saying the full words. When did you become so unreasonable that you even cursed your own child? I'm too lazy to tell you. In short, I won't leave this marriage. The phone was hung up, and I shrugged my shoulders indifferently. If it is a curse, then I should wish him and Zhou Ruirui to grow old together, be infertile, and have full of children and grandchildren. Zhuang Xinian always thought I was joking in order to get his attention. Because of this marriage, I have always been a weak party. At the beginning, I resolutely married him despite my parents' opposition. After marriage, in order to support his career, he pulled business around and often drank until he had stomach bleeding. I love him. I can't catch such a thing as cute. I can't say I don't love him. I entrusted Lu Li to send a lawyer's letter directly. Since we can't separate decently, see you in court. As soon as I received it, Zhuang Xinian came back. It's ridiculous that we met again in this way. It seemed that he had a good time during this period, and his eyebrows were full of excitement, but when he saw me, he suppressed it. I wanted to ask him why he came back, but Zhuang Xinian was faster. He pulled my shoulder in an eager tone. Are you willing to force Ruirui to death? She didn't do anything. She just felt sorry for the birth of the kitten. She was like, girls will be afraid and ask me for help. This is normal. Do you have to go to the platform and recover all the money? It turned out that he was seeking justice for his white moonlight, thinking that I should not recover the money. I fixed my head and responded word by word. If you feel sorry for her, you can earn it. What does it have to do with me? Zhuang Xinian raised his hand to hit me. I looked straight into his eyes without fear. This heart has long been hurt and hammered over and over again, and now it is not afraid of anything. 4. You fight. If you dare to do it today, I will sue you for wasting your property. From the beginning of love, Zhuang Xinian knew that I was not often angry, but when I got angry, I always said everything. He swallowed his saliva, put down his hand, and tried to play the emotional card with the child. Mumble, have you forgotten? How much we are looking forward to this child. We have even thought of the name. I have already said that Ruirui and I are friends. No matter what happens, I will return to my family. Don't be angry, okay? If it hadn't been for Ruirui's matter, how could he beg me in such a low voice? In my impression, Zhuang Xinian has always been indifferent. After I was pregnant, I often saw loving couples going together for examination and exercise, and I was alone in everything. Even when he was sick and lying in bed, Zhuang Xinian would think I was annoying and go out to find Ruirui. I begged him not to leave, in exchange for his hands being beaten down and disgusted. He said, Lin Jinan, Ruirui is very scared now. Don't be pretentious. It's just a little cold. What will happen if you find some medicine to take? Pregnant women can't take medicine indiscriminately, which is common sense, but his father-to-be said such a thing. I don't want to remember anymore, so I pushed Zhuang Xinian back. If you are here to talk about divorce today, then we have something to say. If not, then you can go. A few more words with him can remind me that he left my face without hesitation. It was him who caused me to be sent to the hospital in time, and the child died in the womb. Seeing that I was serious, Zhuang Xinian couldn't stand it. He showed an ugly face and shouted at me. Lin Jinan, I'm talking to you in a good voice now to give you face. Don't act anymore. How can a woman like you be willing to divorce? Don't you just want me to break up with Ruirui? Let me tell you, don't try to stop me from socializing normally. If you do this again, I will never recognize this child in my life. He thought he was holding my handle and waiting for my reply proudly. I laughed wildly and put my finger on his chest. Child, I've said it countless times. If the child dies, he will die on the day you celebrate. Zhuang Xinian, can't you understand people's words? My current appearance is not much better. After the baby, I haven't slept well. My eyes are red and swollen. From a distance, they look like two walnuts. Zhuang Xinian's figure stagnated, and his words were stuck in his throat. Even a fool could sense something was wrong. Obviously, he realized something and took my hand to ask for proof. You lied to me, right? You lied to me. The child's physical examination has always been very healthy. How can he not be there? You talk. I took out my mobile phone from my arms and weared out the last hope of Zhuang Xinian. This is what the child has just been born. His skin is wrinkled but white. The most terrible thing is that he lies quietly, lying on his last belonging, the incinerator. Ah! Zhuang Xinian screamed and covered his head. Tears slipped from the corners of his eyes and gathered into countless apologies. But it's a pity that I don't need it, let alone my son. I watched his figure fall to the ground and crawled to beg me. Where are the ashes of the child? Murmur, I beg you to tell me, I know I'm wrong, I really know. 5. He folded his hands like a devout prayer, as he did when I was taken to the hospital. But as a result, the child died and a piece of meat was cut out of my heart. I pushed Zhuang Xinian away and put my mobile phone close to his eyes. Did you see it? He died at such a young age. When you were holding the kitten and feeding it, he was being burned by fire. You still named the cat Bei. Zhuang Xinian, do you deserve your father? When it comes to the child, I feel that the wound that had been healed has collapsed again, and I trembled with pain. I often fantasize about him opening his eyes and smiling a few days before giving birth, but the only thing left is a pair of cold bones. Zhuang Xinian closed his eyes and didn't dare to look up. I didn't want to let him go and dragged him out of the community. It's here. You left me and the child here. At that time, my amniotic fluid was broken. I beg you to take me to the hospital first, just a moment, but what about you? My voice suddenly became high, and Zhuang Xinian shrank back and subconsciously wanted to run away. On the day of delivery, he was the same. I was left at the gate of the community and couldn't move. Zhuang Xinian walked out while talking on the phone. I pulled his sleeves and wanted him to take a look at me. But in exchange for a vigorous tearing, my stomach ache was severe, and I exclaimed, Xinian, you. Where are you going? The baby is going to be born. Take me to the hospital quickly. Zhuang Xinian kicked his feet impatiently, and the disgust on his face intensified. He felt that my broken amniotic fluid was very fishy and shameful, and he was far away from me. Ruirui has an emergency. I have to help her. You know, she can't do without me. With a phone call, he left without looking back. I tried to reach in the direction he was walking until I lost my strength and fell to the ground. Ruirui can't live without him, and I deserve to be abandoned and almost die. That's the retribution of my love for Zhuang Xinian. Now that I don't love him, what is he? More and more people were passing by. Zhuang Xinian tried to cover his cheeks tightly to show his face. I didn't care and preached loudly. What are you afraid of? Isn't it just looking for the white moonlight, which led to the death of your child? Your true love. Is there anything that can compare with true love? A mother's love for her child is enough to risk everything. The onlookers couldn't stand it any longer and pulled Zhuang Xinian to preach. Young Manson, it's wrong to cheat, not to mention that you are like this. If you leave your wife, you will be struck by lightning. I don't know how big it is. Leave your pregnant wife and do it. I think this is a typical scumbag. He deserves to go to hell. After marrying me, Zhuang Xinian was so tall that he didn't even go out to do business like this. Now that he has lost his face, he should have scolded me angrily and finally ran away. Unexpectedly, he knelt in front of me this time and hit his head heavily on the ground. I was wrong and muttered, I don't know. I really don't know. I thought it was a trivial matter to have a child. I didn't know if the child would be born. Please forgive me. I will cut off with Zhou Ruwei in the future. We won't divorce, okay? The child will still have it. Again I slapped Zhuang Xinian's face. Spit water at him. You are so disgusting. I blindly like people like you. 6. I raised my feet and left. Zhuang Xinian was surrounded by the crowd, like an abandoned child. After returning to normal life, Luli reported to me from time to time. Zhou Ruwei no longer my wife sued me in a selfish court so that I could transplant my kidney to White Moonlight 39103. Now she is about to be homeless, let alone have a cat. I browsed her circle of friends. This time it was no longer a happy copywriter but a curse at me. Some people who can't control their husbands well, know how to bully an honest person like me, and they still care about that little money. It's really a flower. I've never seen such a person in my life. Poor my precious daughter, she will follow me to suffer. In the past few days, Zhuang Xinian has been wandering around the door of his house. He heard that his work has hit a wall everywhere and his business has lost several orders. I pretended not to see him every time and refused to let him go home. Zhou Ruwei obviously didn't see the benefits, and she couldn't catch Zhuang Xinian's eyes. I directly took a screenshot of my moments and responded by name. I haven't seen anyone rushing to be a junior. Have you ever seen him? I almost wrote the word 3 or 2 directly on her face. The circle of friends was boiling, and many people gave me advice to kill this pair of scumbags and bitches. Some friends care about my health and tell me that pregnant women should not be angry. I then responded, the child is gone. On the day she was excited, my child died because of her phone call. My tone was very calm, but it caused a storm. Most of my friends are the same age as me. They have parents and children, and they can understand my feelings very well. Zhou Ruwei's WeChat account was blown up. By the time she realized, she had received a lot of unsightly news. I looked at the trot page by page, and only felt that the hatred in my heart was not dispelled, which was far from enough than what I could bear. Finally, Zhou Ruwei had no choice but to turn off the function of adding friends, and she sent me a lot of messages. From insulting to breaking the defense and finally an apology. I already knew it was wrong. I didn't know you had a baby, otherwise I wouldn't have called Xinian. What's more, this is his choice. I was innocent. So innocent I can't help but think of Zhou Ruwei's big watery eyes. When we first met, she blinked her eyes and clenched Zhuang Xinian's sleeves, as if she had been greatly wronged. But at the beginning she left Zhuang Xinian. She had her dreams to pursue, and love was not so important. At that time, Zhuang Xinian suffered a heavy blow and almost died. I appeared beside him and took him out step by step to do business. In the end it turned out to be mine. I interfered in their feelings. I don't want to listen to these T-words anymore, so I decisively blacked Zhou Ruwei. Luli cheered and opened the door, giving me a big hug. Munnan, I now have exact evidence that Zhuang Xinian cheated on him. He is finished. As long as he still wants to resist, even his current company, I will give him a pot. Luli is a strong opponent when he is serious. It seems that Zhuang Xinian is about to react. He is about to have nothing. Chow 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 arrived, and the door that was not closed was suddenly kicked open. It was Zhuang Xinian and Zhou Ruwei. It seems that Zhou Ruwei suffered a great blow and cried so hard. Zhuang Xinian completely forgot the embarrassment in the morning and cursed loudly. I admit that it's my fault, but there will be more children. Aren't you unable to give birth? But Ruirui is innocent. Why did you treat her like this? Why did I treat her? I looked at Zhou Ruwei strangely and approached step by step. Why don't you tell me why I bullied you? Zhou Ruwei, in those years you were going to pursue your dreams, but now you have a dog skin plaster. Stick it up in the same way. Congratulations. You succeeded. I'll give you this garbage, but it's normal for a junior to be scolded. Why did you ask me to bully you? Zhou Ruwei hid behind Zhuang Xinian, as weak as a silk flower. Xinian, forget it. It's right to hate me. If it weren't for me, her child would have been fine. She just took my job and stole our baby. I deserve it. I grew up with a golden soup spoon since I was a child, and I have been working in my own industry since graduation. Unfortunately, Zhou Ruwei is under my hands. This for a while I couldn't breathe because of the pressure. I didn't even leave the house. How could I get rid of her work? However, I have wanted to do this for a long time. I clapped my hands and raised my eyebrows and said, so what if I did it? I used to like to say no, but Zhuang Xinian didn't believe it. Now that I admit it, he still hesitates. Give a bye-bye bick. This is the cat that Ruirui has raised for a long time. It is a creature. Lin Jinan, you have experienced the pain of losing a child. You should be able to understand. It's like a sharp blade dissecting my heart, and then telling me lightly that you can accept it, but others can't. I strangled Zhuang Xinyan's neck madly with a ferocious face. Don't compare a beast with my baby. Zhuang Xinyan, I'll tell you what if I kill it. It's all you owe me. I not only want the cat to die, but also want both of you to die. This is the deepest darkness in my heart. Luli was not idle and staged a drama of tearing up the little 3 codes. There was a messy curse at home. Zhuang Xinyan took Zhou Ruirui and left injured. The two of them limped and ran very fast. I tidied the hair in front of my forehead and rushed to the company. I really want to know why Zhou Ruirui was expelled or who avenged me. Completely different from the revenge she said. Zhou Ruirui actually intended to embezzle public funds. Seems that she is really out of money. Holding the evidence I just got in my hand, I fell into meditation. Zhuang Xinyan has been sending me messages. It's been like this these days. People who don't want to pay attention to me all the year round, just like a change of soul, booing to me every day and begging me to save him. His company has a big problem and can't last long. I think it's a little funny. Why does he think that I will save an enemy? At this time I have a conscience not to fall into the stone. I asked the company to deal with Zhou Ruirui seriously. She committed a crime and it was too cheap for her to be fired. I want to see how she can be arrogant without anything. A few days later, Zhuangxi began to let go. He wanted to see me, and as long as he met, he could sign the divorce. I wanted to see what tricks he was playing, so I went to the appointment alone. This is the restaurant we met for the first time. Zhuang Xinyan wore the same clothes as the first one and waited for me with a smile. I have to say that he gave birth to a good skin, and some people dressed up a little like dogs. I threw the divorce agreement in my hand on the table and waited for him to sign. Zhuang Xinyan was not in a hurry. He forced my shoulder to sit down and carefully prayed for me to finish the last meal. 8. As long as I can stay away from him as soon as possible, I can do anything. But not long after the entrance I felt dizzy and Zhuang Xinyan, who was sitting opposite, smiled sinisterly. Isn't it just a child? I can give it to you again. He actually drugged me and wanted to force myself to share a room with me. I struggled desperately but my strength was getting weaker and weaker, and my eyelids kept getting heavier. Zhuang Xinyan hugged my waist and blew into my ear. I'll give you a child, and you will leave me again. Ruirui is right. You are too irrational now, but I love you. I can tolerate everything about you. Touched by him, I felt a sense of nausea in my chest. Zhou Ruirui walked out of the corner, with the inevitable smile on the corners of her mouth, as if she was laughing. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape her clutches. I was destined to be a stepping stone in my life. When I was about to fall into the darkness completely, a dead baby suddenly appeared in my mind. He lay peacefully but gave me great strength. I pushed Zhuang Xinyan away and picked up the knife and fork on the table. I poked my thighs straight. At this moment I was very glad that this was Western food. If it were chopsticks it would be difficult to hurt myself. The pain spread all over my body, and the dense hatred stirred up. I held my breath and shouted loudly. They are rapists. They drug me and want to take me to the hotel. Help me, help me. This should be Zhou Rui's idea, so the amount of medicine is very large. Even if my thighs are bloody, the will in my head is also being encroached on. Fortunately, the people in the restaurant surrounded Zhuang Xinyan one after another. Some people called the police and some people called 120. I fell asleep completely, and it was the next day when I woke up. There were many people around me including policemen, and their eyes were very complicated. Luli took a glass of water to feed me, and the police needed me to record a confession to help the case. In Zhuang Xinyan's mouth, I have been crazy since the child died. He thought that if I had another child I would return to normal. What's more, this was the duty of husband and wife, and he was not wrong. It is difficult for the Qing official to cut off the housework, and the police can only wait for me to sober up and tell the full process. According to the doctor's examination of my body, it did contain a lot of drugs. I burst into tears and opened my mouth weakly. He drugged me with Xiao San. Who knows if he really wants a child or wants to make money and kill him? After all, we are in the process of divorce recently. He cheated on me and left the house with obvious motives for the crime. Besides Zhou Ruirui, she embezzled public funds in my company and was fired. I have a grudge. I asked the police to take the two of them and give me an explanation. As long as I don't want to, they can't be acquitted. The police expressed their deep sympathy to me and explained that they would deal with this case seriously. With Zhuang Xinyan's current economic level, he can't even afford to hire a lawyer, so he can only ask me for help, or tear his face with Zhou Ruirui and shirk responsibility from each other. I'm waiting for the day when they turn against each other. Faster than I thought. The day after being detained, the police called. Zhuang Xinyan clamored to see me. He said that all this was thought of by Zhou Ruirui. Even the medicine was bought by her. She was not even an accomplice but just threatened. I picked up my bag, took the divorce agreement on the table, and rushed to the police station slowly. Both of them were much haggard. As soon as they saw me, they talked ill of each other endlessly, and the past deep affection no longer existed. I knocked on the table and said meaningfully, "Then this agreement. I'll sign immediately." As he said, Zhuang Xinyan raised his pen to write, afraid that he would regret it if he said one more word. 9. Zhou Ruirui was unwilling to show weakness. She looked up at me and shouted loudly, "Your son was killed by him. It was all his idea and those moments were all posted by him. Can you forgive such a person? I tell you everything we do is him. He came to me shamelessly, and it was also his idea to drug you. He is a selfish person who scolded your son for dying. Maybe he is not a human being." There was a faint pain in my chest. I looked at Zhuang Xinian with fierce emotions and asked silently, "I am now the most critical person." He can no longer hold back his anger. He kicked Zhou Ruirui and rode on her left and right to bow. It's really an interesting picture. I stood aside and enjoyed the madness of the two, with sarcasm in my eyes. Zhou Ruirui screamed and retailed, and the scolding became more and more difficult. "Bitch man, do you really think I like you and cats? If your wife hadn't been rich, I would have felt sick when I saw you. I did everything to confuse you. For your money I would never love you. This is like a poison rose." Zhuang Xinian loves the sincere contribution, which is insignificant compared with personal interests, not to mention that Zhou Ruirui also revealed the truth himself. The police separated the two, and Zhuang Xinian kowtowed to me. I was wrong and muttered, "I love you, I only love you. The idea of drug was made by Zhou Ruirui. She lied to you. We have known each other for so long. You should know what kind of person I am. I won't lie to you. I just want to keep you by my side. Can you forgive me? We are divorced." Zhuang Xinian. I extinguished the last hope in his heart and walked out of the door with the divorce agreement in my hand. I promised to come over, but I didn't say who I wanted to be free from. Zhuang Xinian couldn't stand it anymore. "Lin Jinan, isn't it just a child? Can't compare with our relationship for so many years? Do you have to force me to die? You liar, you haven't loved me at all. If you love me, how can you say no?" He broke his defense and was a little speechless. I turned to look at Zhou Ruirui, who was in a pool of stagnant water, looked at him again and nodded thoughtfully. "You're right, Zhuang Xinian. I'll let you go this time. Of course it's a lie, only outside. Only then can you two take revenge on each other more and more crazy. Compared with me, the love after love is deeper." On the first day of being released, Zhou Ruirui kicked Zhuang Xinian out, and even most of his company's funds were transferred by her, which means that he went bankrupt and was homeless. When Luli and I heard the news, we laughed and tasting tea. Zhuang Xinian and Zhou Ruirui fought on the spot. They were very cruel. The two of them were not only admitted to the hospital, but also made the news. A little 3 fights with the cheating partner. There are all kinds of speculations in the outside world and there are all versions, but Zhou Ruirui is really miserable because her group is not very popular, so many people speculate that she has found other men, or Zhuang Xinian has no money to give her. The first time I saw myself send myself to the internet, I watched it with great interest. 10. During the hospitalization, Zhuang Xinian also asked me for help. He tried to use his son to make emotional cards on me, expressing his great regret. Zhou Ruirui was a bitch. Is that so? Luli and I were drinking afternoon tea, putting our mobile phones aside, and Zhuang Xinian cursed. "Mumble, believe me, I'm just confused by the bitch Zhou Ruirui. She said she loved me very much. There was a reason why she left at the beginning. She also called you on the day of your birth. She is not a good person. But you believe it, don't you?" I asked back lightly, and Zhuang Xinian hung up the phone for a long time. He won't let Zhou Ruirui go. In order to slander her, he was willing to spend all her balance and buy a piece of news. He accused Zhou Ruirui of destroying his family. He obviously abandoned him at the beginning, but now he came back to destroy his happiness, which is simply a model of a villain. To be honest, a cheating person, his news is undoubtedly his own online violence. Zhuang Xi became popular, and the fight between him and Zhou Ruirui was turned over again, and even made into an emoticon. It was so unbearable that Zhou Ruirui couldn't bear it and revealed that he had killed his son. I don't want to pay attention to this rotten grain anymore, but Zhuang Xinian went crazy and took Zhou Ruirui to the high-rise building. The police found me, hoping that I could appease him. After all, it was a life. Luli rubbed her hands and pulled me over excitedly. Looking at her expression, I knew that she wanted to save people. She just wanted to pull me to witness the end of Zhuang Xinian with her own eyes. When I arrived, there were different degrees of scars on Zhou Rui's body. The most shocking thing was the one on his neck, which was still bleeding out. The police did not dare to act rashly. Zhuang Xinian's knife was put on Zhou Rui's neck, not to mention that he was only one step away from falling. I squinted at the scene and the police shouted, Zhuang Xinian, Lin Jinan is here. She is here. Don't you want to see her? Put down the weapon in your hand. Do you want to go to prison for the rest of your life?" He heard the shout and looked in my direction with hope, and tears wet his cheeks. I was wrong and muttered, "I really can't live without you. Can you forgive me?" I didn't open my mouth. Zhuang Xinian's hand became heavier. Zhou Ruirui lost his mind and he laughed wildly. "It's all my fault that bitch killed our baby. Don't be sad. That cat has been killed by me." He pointed to the corner and there was a dying kitten. Compared with Zhou Ruirui, its injury was obviously more serious. Its intestines were hanging outside the body, and it was not long before its life. My heart suddenly hurt and I thought of my child. "Zhuang Xinian, are you crazy enough? I will never forgive you. You killed Bei. You don't deserve to be a human being. Now you have to kill others. Why? Is he a murderous maniac in his bones? My eyes were full of disgust, and Zhuang Xinian cried even more fiercely. No, muttering, I don't want to do this. I really can't help it. You won't forgive me, so I can only kill her. As long as she dies, we can go back to the past, back to the past. He's crazy. The police are looking at me and hoping that I can let go. I pointed to my heart full of sarcasm. Won't it be you who died? As long as you don't want to, can Ruirui force you? She can't, so it's all because of you. It's you who cheated on me and left me. It's all because of you. Why is the person who died not you? Because you are timid and like to blame all the blame on others. You are a coward. Zhuang Xinian was stunned by me. He muttered the word coward and gradually loosened his hand. The police quickly came forward to control him and took down the sharp blade in his hand. After being pressed to the ground, he shouted my name bitterly, and I never looked back. His current regret is not love at all. He just can't bear such a stupid person as me, and he can't give up such a beautiful life. Ruirui did not die after being sent to the hospital, but she was seriously injured and lost the root of the disease in her life. Zhuang Xinian was arrested. He will be sentenced for a long time. His biggest wish is to see me again. At that time I was on vacation with Luli and didn't care about the news. If I don't love him anymore, what does it have to do with me if he dies? From now on, I will only live for myself and the dead Bei.